Hello. Today's video I'm going to work on moving the generator exhaust from here on the side of the RV over to here somewhere on the back of the RV. Primarily because, as you can see when you look at the exhaust, it's suffered a few minor hits already. But more important than that, the slide is here. When the slide is out, I'm not sure this seals as well as it should because it's not airtight, obviously, and that's far too close for me to feel comfortable with the risk of carbon monoxide. There's also the dryer vent there and a window. On the back, there's no openings. This back fiberglass is pretty much sealed. On top of that, there's actually a second wall right here where my hand is that's also sealed, that's really super sealed. So there's much less chance of carbon monoxide. So we're going to get underneath there and see what it takes to get this loose and start working on it. To do this job, you're going to need to pull these two nuts off of this and remove this exhaust hanger. This is the exhaust hanger I added after the original factory exhaust hanger broke. That was the first time this got hit. And also I have to undo the clamps up there so that I can swivel this pipe towards the back. I have to trim off this bad area and then I have an extension pipe to put on. Alright, so here we go. 1/2 inch impact. And we're loose. Now let's hope these are 1/2 inch too. They are. Ooh, I can't film this one. Alright. And the top exhaust clamp is loose. So you can see it there, barely, and this bottom one's loose. So this can now unhook and swivel, and oh, look at that! One of the bolts is loose on this from the factory. Let's see if I can put the light on. That's loose. I wonder if there's even a gasket left in there. I guess I'll find out. Alright, so turn the light back on. I'm going to rotate this back and forth a little bit to get it loose. Take the clamp off. I'm going to just have to take it off of this flange. As you can see, one of the bolts is already loose, so. But this is a different size. These are not 1/2 inch. Sorry, I couldn't do that on camera. It's unscrewed. There are exhaust gaskets over there. You can see the flange up there now. You can see how the flange has 2 sets of bolts, so you can mount it 2 different ways. And that is in case you want to mount it with the exhaust pipe going out this way, which that would be really nice to do. I'd love to do that, but I don't have the parts to do that. If you want it to go out this way, yeah, there's a different down pipe. There's a very short U-bend. The U-bend I have is bigger than that, and it's going to go underneath this frame here, just like the current one does. And then we're going to go straight back and over in here somewhere, hook into probably drill a small hole in the hitch plate there for the exhaust hanger. And the hitch will be what the hitch steel there will be what protects the pipe from bending. So the first step is going to be cutting this pipe somewhere before this mangled section here. You can see right there that's mangled, so I'm going to cut it somewhere back there so I get a nice smooth section. You can cut this with a hacksaw or a sawzall or a whizzy wheel or death wheel, whichever you want to call it, a cutting wheel and a grinder. I'm going to use my cold saw just because I have it and it makes really good cuts and they're nice and square, but it's not that important. This is not that precision. So we're all chucked up in the cold saw. This is a V block that's specifically made to hold pipe. the top part of that, or angle, or anything like that. And then the bottom part of this vise you use for flat stuff. And I'm going to pull this back. You can see the cutting blade here. There's little carbide teeth on it. That's why this is a cold saw. It's not a typical chop saw that makes lots of dust. These are more expensive. They spin at a completely different speed. This one is from a company called, I can't even remember anymore. It's on this one side, isn't it? Yeah, there it is. It's Evolution. This is an Evolution. And you can use it with this blade on. This is not the world's greatest metal blade, but you can use this saw to cut anything. I use this for wood, metal, plastic. Here we go. Come down here and touch this with your bare hand, as I'm touching right here. Put it down. So there's the cut end, and I touch it with my bare hand, and it's not even warm to the touch. If I cut that with an abrasive disc or something like that, you wouldn't be able to touch it. So we'll loosen it up. Let's see if it fits on the piece of extension piping we bought. There's the extension pipe. Hopefully all the measurements I took were right. And no, of course not. I got the wrong freaking parts. Again, as usual. So, my vendor sent me the wrong pipe. This is supposed to be 1.5" OD. And it's measuring 1.27. So I'm going to really call that, that's probably 1.25. This is 1.25 inches. You can see, the pipe that came off is 1.48, 1.49, basically 1.5 inches. So I'm going to have to mock this up, but not actually put it back together till they send me the right pipe or I buy it somewhere else. So as I put this back together, I've added lock nuts onto the exhaust manifold bolts, since they didn't have any and they were loose when I went to take this off. I think I'm also going to order a new exhaust gasket here, this manifold. I don't believe this is 2 gaskets. I believe this is one that's separated. And why nothing is focusing, I don't know. Well, that project quickly went sideways. That happens to me all the time. So I backed up and punted. The exhaust pipe I got from my supplier was the wrong size. It was 1.25 inches instead of 1.5 inches. It was the right part number. Somebody had written the 1.5" part number on there in magic marker, but they didn't measure it, and it was actually 1.25 inches. And so I sent it back. Rather than try to order the actual Onan part again, I instead decided to go a completely different route. So instead of running the exhaust straight down the way it is right now, which uses this piece, I'm going to run it out the back of it with this. It's called a rat hole, the accesses that these use. So this is still 1.5 inches. As you can see, it's the same size. So this came from Amazon. It was an open box item. It was only 15 bucks. Normally these are about 30 bucks, most places I can find them. And then from Summit, I ordered a piece of 1.5 inch exhaust tubing. That's like $14 worth of exhaust tubing, so that's pretty cheap. I ordered a couple of these nice bends that are Mandrel. You can see there's no collapsing of the tubing in the bend, versus the factory pipe has bent collapse in it. I don't really think it matters, but I like it. I also ordered a pair of these. These are 1.5 inch OD connectors. So you would put them on a pipe like this, and you can use it to connect 2 pieces of pipe without having to have them switched. I got some hangers. I'm going to have to go buy some new bolts because this uses 4, and I really want to use all 4 of them. And this fourth one is going to be a bit of a pain because it's hidden by the pipe. I may not be able to get it in at all. Or I may have to put the bolt in from the top and use a nut on the bottom to get this fourth one in. The gasket I had was bad. I couldn't find new gaskets from Onan. They seemed to be out of stock. And I couldn't find one that fit that flange, which is 4 holes. So I bought a piece of copper. This is 1 millimeter thick piece of copper, and it's from Amazon, and I think it was pretty cheap. I'll put all my parts on this afterwards. Apologize, my pipe was falling. So I'm going to go get 4 new stainless bolts and lock washers. This didn't even have lock washers on it. They were already loose. They have a tendency to loosen up. On a lot of engines like this, you eventually end up safety wiring these things to keep the exhaust from falling off. And I also have to go get this piece of pipe opened up just a tiny bit. So I'm either going to buy a pipe opener, a pipe expander, or take it to a muffler shop, because this is just not quite big enough to fit on here. And I had thought about reusing this old piece of pipe, but I really don't see a need to do that. I can keep this extra pipe and stuff and eventually make my own Genturi out of it, and that's what I think I've decided I'm going to do. So I'm off to the store to buy bolts and either get this expanded or buy an expander. Harbor Freight has one, however it only goes to 1.5 inches. I need to make this 1.25 inches, and so this is smaller than that. So I'm going to bring it with me and see if I can get it to fit in there, because it's only about 12 bucks. Otherwise, I'll have to go all the way across town for a muffler shop. So I'm going to cut the outside of this copper to make my exhaust gasket, probably using something abrasive, like either a Dremel or a death wheel in a grinder. So I need to outline this exhaust flange. So I'm going to try to get everything lined up as best I can. Put this phone down. I'm going to put this over here so this corner that I can't get to isn't in my way. As you can see, and just getting this lined up. I'm going to use the factory edge because it's there, and it's a lot easier to use that than trying to make my own perfect edge, and then just trace here with a marker that apparently is out of ink. All right, there. So that's my trace, and obviously I'll have to round that one corner a little bit, but now I can plan on how I'm going to cut that. Like I said, it'll either be with a Dremel with an abrasive cutter in it, or it'll be done with a abrasive cutter in a grinder. The reason I don't want to use like tin snips or something, which would probably cut this pretty well, is I don't want to get this as very distorted. I'd like it to be as flat as possible because it's a gasket. Got the Dremel set up, got the copper in the vise, ready to cut. Needs more speed. By the way, folks, don't do this one-handed. Alright. Wasn't fun or easy, but it's cut out. It needs a little bit of sanding, clean up the edges and so forth, but it's the start. Using the 2 factory edges, on the corners. You can see I got a little bit of overlap on each edge, so I can sand it down. And then obviously I got to round it a little bit, but that's good for now. All right, back from the store. I could not get in a tailpipe expander at Harbor Freight, so I took it to a custom muffler shop, paid $10, and they swedged the pipe a little bit bigger. So the first thing I'm going to do is mark this right here. I'm going to cut this little tab off so that I can just slide it into place. That way I can use all 4 bolts, but I don't have to do any re-engineering like trying to put a nut on the bottom and a bolt on the top. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Hopefully be able to film this one-handed. Let's see here, we'll use the vise to help us. So all I need to do is take just a little bit off of here. Focus, you silly thing. Like there. So I'm going to take a little bit off, and I'm going to try to work the hole up so it's just big enough for the bolt to fit. So I got it in my vise here. Next step will be to get the cutting wheel, and we will just cut it. Where is the cutter? Here it is. Cutter looks really good. Got a fresh blade in it. This is going to be loud. And I'm actually going to wear gloves for this, because every time I don't wear gloves, I end up hurting myself, and that's my own fault. I'm going to come up with a way to film this. And I really am on the struggle bus for that. If you're getting dizzy, I apologize. I'm kind of dizzy thinking about how to make this video happen. Well, I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to end up having to do this with one hand. Make sure the vise is tight. It's cut most of the way through. It should just wiggle off now. Maybe not. I think I left that too thick. All right, let's get a little bit more. All right. Now, is that big enough for our bolt to pass through? So the first one on the floor. Not quite. I'm going to have to open it up just a little bit. Now I'll use this as a grinding wheel and just touch it up a little bit. Yep, need more. Perfect. All right. Nice tight fit. Bolt doesn't have a lot of play in it. That's great. Now the one I dropped on the floor. The hardware I bought at Ace Hardware is stainless steel washers, stainless steel lock washers, and new stainless steel bolts, just to have spares. Alright, now I'm going to mark the overages on this with a magic marker. I got the factory edges butted up. And I have a magic marker in my mouth. It's talking a little difficult. So what I'm going to just do is mark this copper where it overhangs. And then I'll just hit it with the grinder and the flat disc, whichever I need, depending on the overage. And so I got a little bit more overage here. That side's pretty good. The nice thing about using the cutting wheel as a grinding wheel is that it does it smooths. It's very flat surface to start with, so that it helps keep your surface flat when you do this. I'm sure nobody professionally learns to do this. This is something us garage hacks do. If you've never worked with sheet metal or sheet copper before, just keep in mind, whenever you do anything with a power tool to it, you have a tendency for the power tool to kick it, get a bite on it and kick it at you, and then it cuts your hand open because it's very sharp. So what are we going to do here for video? Right there. This is so hard. I really wish I had better stuff for doing this video wise. Turn this on. Just uses a grinding wheel to cut the high points off of the corner, and the two edges are relatively straight now. Look from this side. And so our next step is going to be drilling this for the bolt holes. And in order to do that, I'm probably going to use spray paint to mark where the holes need to be. A trick I've seen on several YouTubers' sites that was relatively new to me, but I do like it. I'm going to use my vice grips as a clamp here. Vice grips are a clamp. Very popular for use in welding as welding clamps. There we go. So now I'm clamped, and I can just spray paint this, and where the paint goes on this piece of copper will be where I need to drill my holes. So I used a pretty crappy spray paint, and it did a pretty crappy job for the copper. I think I'm going to pull this apart, clean it off, and try again. This time I put it on with the plastic side down. Really hard to see inside here, but Hopefully it marks better on this. I don't know. Cheap paint. Paint was an epic failure. So I've got this mounted up in my drill press vise, and I'm going to figure out what size drill I need that'll fit the holes in the exhaust gasket. Should be bigger, smaller than that. Let's see. And I'm going to use the drill bit kind of as a transfer punch. That one's too big. The ones that are in here upside down are usually in that way because they're dull. However, for this, there we go, just enough that it's biting. For this purpose, being dull won't really hurt anything. I'm actually probably going to just use a hand drill for this. For any of you wondering what drill I selected, it's a W. Other drill, it's a W. All checked up. Just going to make the holes real lightly. Not even make holes. I'm making marks in the copper to go back and drill it with the correct drill. I turned the piece of copper around and reclamped it so I can get the hole that's hidden back here. You see, I'm just getting a little mark on there so that I know where to drill. Next, we'll be actually measuring the bolts I'm going to be using with a micrometer, or not really a micrometer. It's dial calipers. I'm using digital dial calipers because I have them, and I really have a hard time reading regular calipers. So here's my calipers. Take one of the bolts that I'm using, and I am going to measure the diameter. So the biggest I'm getting is 0.36 inches. 0.036 and a half inches. I will have to now go figure out what the hell that is in drill bits. And I happen to have my drill index. This is an ancient Harbor Freight index. They don't seem to sell this exact one anymore, but it came with this card. So 0.306. It's going to be a big drill. So 0.30, it's going to be a letter I'm going to need here. So an O is 0.316, so that's just slightly bigger. That's probably what I'm going to use right here, O. 0.316 as opposed to 0.306. 0.302 is the next one smaller, and I can't go smaller. So 0.316, the letter O. So for this, I am probably going to use my drill press, but I don't know. Let's hope I have the letter O. So this is the O. I do have it. I am going to use my drill press because there's no other way I can do this accurately. So I've got the piece of copper chucked up into my drill press fixture here. This is just a cheap fixture. It's not here for precision so much as to just hold this and keep this from getting away. Although it does help in getting this all zeroed in so that I'm drilling right through the hole I want to, because I just turn the knob and move it a little bit, and it's a repeatable movement for the most part. I mean, again, this is a cheap, this was probably 25 bucks It was a return on Amazon. It was an Amazon warehouse deal. Let's turn the flashlight on. It looks like I'm right on that, hitting right on that piece of copper. I think I need to go just a tiny bit more this way. My drill press is a piece of junk. This is a piece of junk, but it's all good enough for this, because I could do this with a hand drill if I wanted. I just need to go a little bit further forward. All right, there we go. And you see, this is sitting on 2x4s, because with the work surface out, it's up too high. So I touch, make the hole a little bigger, and I can see I'm right exactly where I want to be. Apply some constant, nice, soft pressure. I'm drilling copper. If we push too hard, we'll bend it. I want to let the drill bit do the work, and not me. Right. Now on to the next hole. Little shards of copper are probably worth $1 million these days. I gotta go this way. And see, I'm gonna run into a problem where I'm probably gonna hit the back post of my cheap drill press. And I'll probably have to turn this whole thing around. Yep, I'm hitting the back post. So, in order to do the next hole, I'm gonna skew the whole thing a bit. And that way I can run it the way I need it. Again, remember, this is sitting on 2x4s. This is not the world's most secure platform for drilling, but it'll work for this. As I get close, I just keep bringing it in. And look, I'm a little bit over each way, so I need to bring it this way a little more, and that way a little more, I think. And this is all guesswork by me. No one will ever accuse me of being a machinist. So there's my drill. Focus. It'd be nice if you focus. So you can see what I'm trying to drill is right there. Let's go back to window. See what I'm trying to drill is right there, and I'm not exactly hitting it. So I need to come in a little bit. A little bit more. Maybe a tiny, tiny bit more. No, I think I'm pretty good. It doesn't have to be perfect. These holes are slightly oversized. Watching the big shred come off is just so satisfying. These holes are nowhere near big enough, because these are just the pilot holes. Actually, once I get these drilled, I may not even have to use the drill press for the next hole. So here's where we're going. Bring this way. Come on, focus. Focus, focus. Let's see some focus. Out a little bit. A little bit more out. And a tiny bit more out. That's starting it right there. bend this piece of metal. That's because it's not perfectly square, and so it's not held on this side as well as it should be. Use a block under it. Sometimes no block. Underneath here to support it a little bit. The holes are right there. I have a piece of wood supporting it from underneath my hand. And I'm pushing it up, and I'm running out of hands to do this whole project. So all my holes are lined up. Now I can go drill the next step with the O-bit, and I'm going to just do that by hand, I think. Alright, got the O-bit, ready to go. This bit is dull. It's even dull to drill copper. May have to hit them on the other side. It seems like it only cuts down to a certain point and then it dies. I'll just flip it over. Don't know if you're actually seeing anything. I'm just flipping it over, putting it back in the drill press, or back in the vise, tightening it up, and hitting it again. Fudge monkeys. Hot piece of copper. Yeah, I probably could have used it real quick. Alright, that's all they're going to drill with that bit. And I know that's not enough. Just in my heart. And the bolts know it too. So we're going to have to use something else. I have a few different step bits. I'm going to try using this one. This next step is what? Okay, you got to focus here. We can't focus. We have no focus. 5/8 maybe? 3/16? I can't read what it says. Put this whole thing back in here. I'm going to drill it out whatever the next step is. Alright. Now, Hocus Pocus Motorocus, still not quite big enough. Just might be barely big enough. Let me see where we are step-wise. I'm going to use this one. This looks like a small step. Yeah, this is just a very small step larger. Which is all I really needed, was a hair larger, and we're good. Alright, let's test fit this whole thing here. See how close we are, and see if I need to make any of these holes any larger. So far they're all lining up. The only one that might not be lining up well is that one. So these are all lining up pretty well, which means my slotty one here might need to be a little bit bigger, because when I put this stuff on, it looks like it's not perfectly lining up. Let's put a bolt in it and see. Got another one somewhere. Bought 4. Plus I had one to start with. There we go. Well, all 4 of them seem to line. I may make this one just the next step big. I may make this bottom one just the next step bigger. So I'm going to get this piece done, and then the next thing is to drill the major hole, which hopefully the trick works for that. Alright, just give this one a little bit bigger hole. I was doing that by hand, and then I stopped, realizing that I was probably going to hurt myself, because I'm going to hurt myself because that's what I do every time I try to drill by hand holding a piece of sheet metal. So I'm going to, this is the hole here, just add a little bit of size to. I'm actually going to hit all the holes. This is the back side. I can tell because I see metal pushed up. So I'm going to hit all of them with a little bit of action, just to make sure this goes down to the next hole, and kind of just counterboards them a little bit and cleans them up. Sander will also clean this up. Sander's also going to be used to clean these up, because that's not doing anywhere near enough. Alright, so I've marked the hole. I've hit them all with the next size up to kind of clean them up a little bit. This one I'm going to go actually drill to the next size. Go. Put these with a little cleanup pass, and then flip this over and a little cleanup pass on the other side. So the one hole is slightly larger to allow for some movement when I install it, allow for me to make mistakes. The back of these all look pretty good except for the one I just made bigger. So I'm going to hit it with a little, and I did this by hand before. I just take the unibit, put it in there, turn it, press down a little bit, and I use it to kind of clean up the bore a little bit. I will hit this with the sand paper. Just this stuff here by hand. It with a little bit of emery cloth to remove anything that's on it. I'll do it on the other side as well. Alright, so that's pretty good. I'm feeling good about this. I'm ready to put it on the exhaust manifold. Alright, so I have the three of the bolts stuck through. It's in the vise holding it. I'm going to try the paint trick again, going this way, hoping that it marks where I need to drill the big hole for the pipe for the exhaust to actually come through the gasket. This is a big hope since it completely failed on me the first time, but what else can you do? If not, I'll have to use paper. I'll just make a copy of the flange. Yeah, it's not. Well, it did kind of work. So if you look here, let me turn this light off. Maybe it'll be better. If you look, you see a little dark circle there, which is where I need to make my hole. That's great. So I used a straight edge to kind of mark a cross, and the reality is I need to drill right here, which is on the inside of the cross for the center of that hole. That's just a function of using a straight edge and a magic marker that you're going to offset what you're marking. So you just have to remember that. I actually had an epiphany. I used the old exhaust manifold through here, and that worked with the paint perfectly. And so now I'll be able to mark this better. Alright, this is the jankiest contraption ever. I've got the bolts through and being backed up by a board so they don't fall down into the vise. I've got a hole saw that is too small, and so I am going to try to perfectly center it in this hole and drill the first hole. After that, I can make it bigger if I need to, not with probably not with another hole saw, but my gap looks pretty good all the way around, so I'm going to go for it. Do not try this at home. No idea if anybody's seen anything. Drill bits through the whole stuff. Let's get janky. Okay. I don't expect this to be perfect. Let's see what we got here. Like I said, I don't expect this to be perfect, but I hope it's usable. Well, it started my hole, did not finish my hole. So I guess I can move up to the next hole saw and now and drill the hole the size I need it. I'm going to guess we're in the center, but I can take a look with this. We're not perfectly in the center, but we're pretty good. I think I can make that work. Now using the next bigger sized hole saw, we'll see what we got. saws are just such a pain. They don't work well. Just flip this over. Biggest problem with hole saws I find is that the bits are threaded all the way. If the bit was threaded and then for just drilling the initial hole and then after that not threaded, it would work better. So after a lot of cussing, I got the hole made. I should not have used a hole saw. I should have used a unibit, but I couldn't find this big one at the time. And then in searching around for different ways to try to clean up the mess that the hole saw made, I did find it, and so now the hole's all basically roundish. And if I line it up on the original exhaust manifold, which is really not an exhaust manifold because it comes off the muffler, but you'll see we're actually fitting pretty well. Again, perfection's not required. This whole area will seal and it'll be good. And remember, the stock gaskets fell apart, so there's not much you can do. Alright, so this is all ready to go on. This is fitting the exhaust hole pretty good. The hole coming from the other way is actually much smaller than this. I can show you on here. It's much more, it's even smaller than that, really. I'll show you when I go to put it on. I got all my fasteners done. And so what I had to do for washers is I wanted very small stainless steel washers. Ace didn't have those in this size. These are, I don't know, 1/2-inch bolts. Well, they take a 1/2-inch wrench. Whatever size they are, they're probably 3/8 or 1/4. So I bought the next size down in stainless steel washer, and then I just made the holes a little bit bigger using the ever-present unibit, because I'm a little strange for the unibit today. So now I've got washers that fit the heads of these things very well. And these are, let's see here what my bolt finder says. Wow. We really need to focus here, guys. Come on. Focus. Can we focus? Focus. Focus. Alright, I'll just take a picture and tell you what it said. So you can see that that hole is substantially smaller. There we go. Compare them side by side with the hole in the manifold. Yeah, it's Onan. What do you know? Anyway, let's put this together. So we're installing this through this, what's called the mouse holes, which is there. So this is going to go like that when I'm done. And then I'm going to run the exhaust out the back of the RV. So the first thing I'm going to do is put the hidden bolt in. I don't know if anybody's seeing anything right now, but I need both hands to get this started. There we go. That's started. I want to get it reasonably well started so a couple of just movements of it doesn't cause it to fall out. And since I cut that slot, I should be able to take the new part. Maybe I'll even show this and use one hand for the camera, and slide it through, and then slide it up onto the bolt. Just if I can find the hole, and if I didn't put it on too tight already, which I don't think I did. I can loosen it just a tad. Okay, why is this not sliding over the bolt? Okay, so the problem was determined and fixed. The problem with why this wouldn't go, this one hidden bolt wouldn't go on, is because the washer and lock washer made it too high. I don't know if you can see it in there, and it would hit the pipe itself. As a matter of fact, the lock washer alone would make it hit the pipe. So I've gotten rid of the lock washer, and it's just got the regular washer on it. The other one should go in with relative ease, he says, tempting the gods. However, the gods know I'm crazy. Or maybe the gods are crazy. They must be. It's inevitable that when a bolt falls and you're laying underneath something, holding the bolt, trying to work on it, it will hit you in the head. It's a law somehow. It's physics. Couldn't tell you whose law it was. I mean, Murphy's too well known. He didn't do this one. I feel like that's threading, but I don't think it actually is. I can't tell. Can't tell until it drops on me. Let's hit them with the impact. Click, click, click. All right. So the three are tight. I just got to get the hidden one, which I'll have to do with a wrench, 1/8 of a turn at a time. Could have probably bought slightly longer bolts. I don't feel them necessarily coming all the way through. All right. I had to totally abandon the 4th bolt. Once I got it in there, there was not going to be any way to tighten it. I couldn't even go from on top and do it through this way. There's not any room there. By the factory, everything's held on with 2 bolts. I got 3. Everything looks pretty good. I'll turn some light on. Battery too low for flash. Okay. Well, how about this light? Let me see how this looks. Hopefully everything got recorded. Now, the pipe comes straight out the back here. And then it's going to go down the frame. I'm going to probably hook it to part of the trailer hitch here. There's a bolt in the frame that I'm going to use actually for the hanger. And then it'll exit underneath, beside the trailer hitch, underneath the fiberglass bumper. Straight down that way. I got the pipe on there. I got the exhaust clamp on there. I'm going to barely tighten this up just to get it just to get it to hold there. This will obviously need adjusting once I put the tailpipe on, but I gotta measure and cut that. I hope these guys didn't make this too long. God, they really made this hole bigger than I wanted them to. I told them to make it barely fit. God, I would end up at, okay, it's finally tightened up. Alright, so the clamp's on, and it's holding it, and it's pointed about where it needs to go. So the last piece will be making the tailpipe, which is just really cutting the tailpipe, and then putting a hanger off of that bolt hole right there to hold the tailpipe. And then coming back and removing this hanger here, and this glommed on one that was what the factory did, this piece of weld here. So I've got the tailpipe mocked up. Right now it's not coming exactly where I want it. I don't want it coming through the trailer hitch. I want it coming beside the trailer hitch. But the elbow doesn't bend enough, or is too long, or whatever, for me to be able to do that right now. However, regardless, I can figure out where to cut this, and that's what I'm going to do now, is mark this and then cut it on the cutter. I tend to use a turn down, which I don't have right this second. I'm going to use this connector to mark where I'm going to cut. And so this is a 1/2 inch ID to ID connector right in the middle here. That's going to be where I cut, so that if I slide that on, it'll help the tailpipe go out the back. And mark is made. We're good to go. Now to pull this out and cut it. Nice thing about cutting it is it'll be a little bit lighter, at least. Right now this thing's pretty heavy. Saw. Things falling normal in my life. My garage is not clean. Move over just a little bit. There we go. The cold chop saw, I always want to make sure it's super tight, because you don't want to chip a carbide tooth. And you always want to hold the piece you're cutting that's not clamped, so that it doesn't fall off. And instead of cutting, what it'll do is it'll bend. Clean up the little bit of tail I got here. Let's see the little bit of tail. I'm going to use my grinder for right now. That's good enough for government work. Okay, part of my solution for this being too long is going to be cutting this a little shorter. There's nothing. Here's a little cleanup, looks pretty good. Better. A little bit of the old fine emery cloth. Probably get in here gently because I don't have gloves on. I don't want anything sharp to come through and cut me. I should have gloves on, I know. Sorry. Alright. So that's all cleaned up and ready to go. I'm going to do some assembly on this before I put it in the RV, I think. Shortened and reassembled. We're going to see if it fits. Taking bets on whether it fits. Anybody who knows my luck knows it won't fit. It won't even be close anymore. Something will have happened. I will somehow made the world's greatest mental error. Okay. That's what we're going for. I'm going to try to lay the camera down on the ground and you're going to see what you see. And you're going to hear me swear. Perhaps. If we do, sorry. Okay, I gotta take I messed up. I can't have the clamp on here yet because it won't fit through the mouse hole. So let's loosen the clamp. Off. Now with the clamp off, I can run this through the mouse hole. Boom. That looks pretty good. I can still get some clamp on there. I have to pull the pipe out just a little bit, but we'll see. Alright. Now gasket. And screws the bolts. I hope this is not a horrible video. I can't tell what you guys are seeing. My arrow. That's the back. I just use that arrow so I put it on the same way every time. That way I know how it fit. You know, it worked at one point this way. Should be symmetrical. Should be operative is an operative word. Times like these, I wonder why I ever was born with the gene to be somewhat handy. Most people would have gone their whole life and not ever worried about this and left it alone. And probably my life would be better if I learned to do that. Instead, I tend to be the guy that does something so everybody else can point and laugh. Alright. The one screw feels pretty good. The other two feel like they're not doing what they're supposed to. Look at this. Using a real wrench. Yeah, that one feels pretty good. That one doesn't feel bad. That one feels fine, but doesn't necessarily feel like it's going into anything. Yeah, I think they're all good. Let's hit them with the impact to get them nice snug. So they're all snug. Now I can come back and feel tightness better with the wrench. I just have to find it. When working upside down, every time you put down a tool, unless you're really disappointed, apparently I'm not, they get put in a different place that you can't find them. That one budged a little bit. That one's good, okay. Clampy clamp clamp. Clampy McClamp. How much am I going to have to doodle around with this because I couldn't. No. I'm going to have to doodle around with it a bit. Oh man, I'm going to just mess this up by cutting it all too short. I do have enough pipe out here, I think, that I can get onto it. But I do think I cut it too short. Well, if I can't get it to clamp, I can, and part of the problem is this beam here. Oh, you guys can't see anything. Because I'm laying on top of the camera, I think. That's part of the problem I have here. I believe that I cut it too short, as usual. I have a hard time getting a clamp on it. A couple options. This piece of angle which holds the generator, I could cut it quite easily right here and right here. That really wouldn't do anything bad to this, and if I was overly worried about the strength of it, I could come back with a bolt-on piece to replace it. I'm going to just try it the way it is and see what I can do. Another option would be to just weld the two together. I don't really like that option. I get another clamp here somewhere. Where is somewhere? Good, got it. I thought that felt funny. Clamping the clamp face. Okay. I don't think I need to hammer any more than that. All right, let's go twist this up and see where this all lands now. Okay, so I'm going to need to bend this pipe more. I'm just going to try to bend it by hand so that I can make it fit where I want it to fit. There. And that's where I want it. So now I'm going to pull this out a little more so that I can get a clamp on here. We're going to see. I have a feeling that I end up welding this or something. The best laid plans of mouses and men. Because I think if I cut it really short and tried to clamp it in here, it would never... I'd never be able to get the clamp in there. This is all bent in here. Once it makes the transition to the port. Okay, I think something just tried to bite me. Or I weld it. Not welding it may be what I end up doing. In order to weld it, I got to figure out where I need it actually to be and then mark the two pieces relative to one another so that when I weld them, they don't move. Obviously, I will have to unhook here. I did see that I could put this in without the clamp. I think that's what we're going to end up doing. Okay, mark. Can I reach up here to mark it? That's the question. See, it's way back up in here. Okay, ow. So I got to mark way back in here to line these two up. I'm not sure how to do that. Alright, got it tacked in two places. I'm going to test fit it, because once you weld much of this, you're going to be throwing it away. Alright, I got it all test fit. And it seems perfect. So, I'm going to go ahead and finish welding, and then we'll move on, finally. Well, I can save you guys all from telling me my welds look like crap. Because I'll tell you, my welds look like crap. There's a little bit of holes in them. However, I think it's more than good enough for what this is. And so this is the final layout of the exhaust. It now comes out on the back of the RV. And you can see underneath here, there's a hanger right there. And there's a hanger right there that's nice and safely hung out of the way and much quieter.
Hello. So again, I'm missing a little bit of video from this. On vacation, I dropped my phone on its screen and broke it in such a way that I could not do anything with the phone. I could not unlock it or anything else. And when I went to Verizon to get it repaired or replaced, at that time, they were having some kind of an outage, and there was no way for them to transfer phones. And so I actually went to Best Buy, had to buy a new phone and just switch the SIM card over. So I lost that video. So what is missing? about an hour more of the video at least. And I converted this into a total fiasco that was totally of my own creation. With all the installation and removing of the tailpipe manifold bolts, which were stainless steel, I finally got to the point where there wasn't enough anti-seize on them, and 2 of the bolts galled and seized and then broke in half when I was removing them with the impact wrench. I shouldn't have used the impact wrench at all on this project because of the stainless steel nuts. If anything, I could have used it to just break them loose, but running them in and out over and over again is what caused this problem. I should have just used a power ratchet and then a hand ratchet to tighten them. So what I had to do, I tried drilling them out, and I bought the best drill bit that I could for the project and spent 10 minutes under there and made no dent in the stainless steel, and decided that I'm going to have to go the long way, and the long way is to remove the generator from the RV. So what I did was I put a stack of tires and wheels next to the generator, and I put a piece of plywood on it so I had a place to slide the generator to. Before I did that, I unbolted the generator, and there's 4 bolts that hold the generator onto the frame. And then I disconnected the 12-volt connection, the 120-volt connection, the fuel line, and the control wiring, and moved those all away from the RV. With the 12-volt wiring, I made sure to tape the ends so that they were not short. And for the 120-volt wiring, I made sure that there should have been nothing there, because that's just the output from the generator, and that's the generator's not on. There's nothing in those wires, but I made sure they were protected as well. And then the fuel line you have to plug so that the fuel doesn't continue to pour. A lot of people use a golf tee. Another thing that works is a 1/4-inch extension. A lot of times you just stick that in there and it'll stop, or a pair of vice grips. Once I had slid the generator onto the plywood, I could remove the green cover on the outside of the generator. It's held on with 4 Allen bolts, and that was quick, pulled off. And the inside of the generator was filthy and full of leaves and things like that, so I cleaned that up as well. And then I unscrewed the muffler from the exhaust pipe. And then I was able to take the muffler into the shop and take a cutoff wheel, a death wheel, and cut all the old nuts off. I didn't trust any of them anymore, although only 2 of them were broken off. I replaced them all. I had 4 brand new stainless steel nuts, actually 3. The one that I couldn't get to, obviously I didn't have a problem with. The one I couldn't use on this project, I talk about repeatedly. So it was just 3. And I put new nuts there, held them in with, put the bolt in from the other side to hold them in place, and then tack welded them. And I didn't tack weld them with anything special like stainless steel. You would usually use a TIG welder for that. However, this is not structural, so I just used MIG, not even MIG, it's GMA, I think is what it's called when you're using a flux core wire. But I used flux core wire in my MIG for mild steel and just tacked the nuts in. And the disadvantage of using that is that the welds will rust. The welds from Onan were rusty, so I'm guessing they do the same thing. And it might affect the structural strength of it, but this is just a tack weld that holds a nut, so you don't have to put a plier, you have to put a wrench on it. It's not structural, so it was fine for this solution. And then I put that all back together, put it back in, and then reinstalled my exhaust. And you saw the video of the final exhaust. It does not leak. My horrible welds are holding together just fine. If I ever take this off, I will probably grind those welds down and weld again, this time using my welder with actual shielding gas in it and the right kind of wire, and it will make a better looking weld. All in all, happy with the project. The prospect of carbon monoxide getting into the RV through the slides is so much lower with it going out the back. Additionally, it's so much quieter when the generator is running because the generator is almost right underneath the master bedroom. And now the exhaust is right there as well. Now the exhaust is past the back of the RV. So there's a bathroom in the back of my RV, and it's a little louder in the bathroom, but it's much quieter in the bedroom. It also makes it easy. I have another video you can see where I have a Genturi that I made. I bought / made. It's not really a Genturi. That's a Camco trademark, I believe. But it's a Chinese Turi, so I think I call it an Alturi. Anyway, I was able to create one of those that did not require me to put any mounting hardware on the RV because it just hooks onto the ladder, which is right next to where this exhaust comes out. Finally, I think it actually helps the generator run a little cooler. With as close as the exhaust was to the intake for the cooling air, I think air was getting sucked back in to the generator. The exhaust was getting sucked back into the generator. The only negative thing about this is when I'm hooking up the Toad, I get blasted in the face with exhaust, and that's before I put the turn down on. When I put the turn down on, it's not so bad, and it's a little louder when I'm hooking the Toad up, but again, that's not that big a deal. If you don't have the tools for this, especially if you don't have the the ability to mock the piping up and stuff like that, my piping was very simple, so I knew I could do it at home. But if you're doing something that's going to have more than the bends I was able to do with off-the-shelf stuff, you really want to take this to a custom muffler shop and have them do it, because it's very hard to go to them and tell them what you need bent, have them bend it, get home and find out, well, yeah, I was off by 4 degrees and now it doesn't go where I needed it to go. You can just buy the Onan manifold if you're going to try to use one of the mouse hole exhaust exits. Otherwise, go to the custom muffler shop and you'll be able to know those places. It's not going to typically be your average Midas. It's probably going to be a mom and pop shop, and they're going to sell. You're going to call them and say, hey, I need a custom exhaust, and they'll know what you're talking about. Tell them it's for a generator on an RV, and tell them they're going to be working with, and you have to know on your generator which one you have. You have to measure it. Do you have 1.25 inches or 1.5 inch OD exhaust pipe? I believe the 5500 Onans are 1.25 inches and the 7000 is 1.5 inches, although I don't know why. You saw how small the hole in the muffler was. But that would be my recommendation if you're doing this and you don't have the hardware I have, or if you're really worried about screwing it up like I did. My original plan was just to keep the existing exhaust that went down and bent out, swivel that towards the back and put a piece of pipe on the end of it and have that go out the back. And had I done that, it wouldn't tuck under the RV quite as well, but I would have achieved all the other same goals, and it would have probably taken me 30 minutes. So it wouldn't be the epic Titanic type video that I'm so well known for. Anyway, thank you for watching my video, and please like and subscribe, and put me in for the Academy Award for the best camera work and film work that you've ever seen, because that's what I'm really hoping for. Thanks.